Well, after the return of a Thai citizen's body, just one more hostage body remains in Gaza. When that last one is returned, the first phase of the ceasefire will be complete. Phase 2 involves disarming Hamas. This poses unique challenges, including a complex battlefield that runs underneath Gaza.
The sophisticated Hamas tunnel network in Gaza has reshaped military operations, with battles below often more important than battles above. One of the leading experts on this type of conflict is Major John W. Spencer, Executive Director of the Urban Warfare Institute. The award-winning scholar and military analyst served for more than 25 years in the U.S. Army, including deployments to Iraq and leadership roles in elite units like the 75th Ranger Regiment. His research focuses on conflict in dense urban areas like Gaza and Israel. He's also a prolific author of essays and books, including his latest, Understanding Urban Warfare.
Well, Major John Spencer is here with us, and Major, let me talk about the controversy first. That there seems to be a idea running around a lot of different circles in America today that Israel engaged in war crimes in Gaza. And to my absolute amazement, and you challenged it, in the New York Times, there was an opinion piece by a member of Biden's administration who part of the national security team. And he says that there's clear evidence that Israel used unusual force against a civilian population. What do you say to that? What's your view of how Israel has conducted the war?
I think they've conducted the war in above and beyond the legal requirements and actually following their moral, ethical codes of the IDF that I've spent a lot of time with. For the person who wrote that op-ed, Ben Rhodes, I can think everybody can have their own opinion, they can't have their own facts. And the things that he says in that, like that Israel intentionally targeted civilians, is just a lie. I've been into Gaza now 6 times, embedded with the IDF, interviewed everybody from the prime minister, the chief of staff, every division commander, the soldiers on the ground. It's an inversion of the truth. What they're actually trying to do is to get the civilians out of harm's way and target Hamas, who has been holding, to this day, the hostages that they illegally took on October 7th. Every bit of information that's in that is just lies by omission or straight out falsehoods. And I don't want to live in a world where people can say things like that, publish them in the paper of record, and people believe it's true. Even the real libel of saying that there's a genocide in Gaza, it's not true. It's actually the opposite. Israel has done more to protect civilians in war, feeding the enemy's population, vaccinating the entire population during the war than any military in the history of war.
I think the lies is so pervasive now that trying to come against it. I heard just this week, how can you support Israel when they fired on citizens lining up to get free food? They fired on civilians lining up to get free food. And I'm going, well, no, they didn't. That was propaganda from Hamas. That it was Hamas fighters within that grouping that started firing on the IDF. They just returned fire. When the head of Hamas comes out and says, we wouldn't let civilians into the tunnels, why isn't that going around the world, that they were intentionally using civilians as human shields?
It's a great question. I actually, as somebody who teaches urban warfare around the world, I think human shields isn't even the right thing to say that Hamas does. They do human sacrifice. So you're right. There's over 600 miles of tunnels in this little small area in Gaza that's only 25 miles long, 5 to 7 miles wide, billions of dollars to dig these tunnels. Every citizen in Gaza, 2.2 million, could fit in those tunnels with ease, but not a single one is allowed in them by strict adherence to Hamas's direction. They say that the tunnels aren't for the civilians, but it's really, people don't get to that conclusion that this is actually human sacrifice. Hamas leadership also says that they need the death of every child, woman, elderly, so they can achieve their goal, which is the destruction of Israel and the death of all Jewish people around the world by having their people die. That's pretty evil, that not even the Nazis, the Japanese, not even ISIS did that, where their true strategy is to get their population killed or starve them or whatever to achieve this victory that they want in war. And by the grace of God, they haven't been able to achieve it, and Israel has actually been victorious.
Is there a larger propaganda war outside of just the conflict that started October 7th? I can't imagine they ever thought that they would win that. But is the real battle here hearts and minds? Is it we're going to fuel a social media propaganda machine, and we're going to spread these lies around the world in order to turn the world against Israel?
Absolutely. And it's not just to turn the world against Israel. It starts with Israel. Then it was to turn the world against the West. And this is the much broader anti-Western, anti-war is kind of in there as well, that no war is justified. And that's just not true. But it's absolutely there and playing on the ignorance of most people on what is war, which is where I came in. Like, this is bad. But even in the wars going on right now in Yemen, Sudan, Ukraine, what Israel is doing is incredible to protect civilians and to try to get to the enemy in the war. I mean, there were 85,000 children that died in Yemen from starvation and malnutrition since 2014, but there's no protest for that. So it's such an inversion and a societal war where they're attacking our values, they're attacking our ability to critically think, and just tell us something and make us think that is true, like these op-eds, which are false, and the videos, which are curated. Actually, even Hamas. Staged. Hamas's chief propagandist, Abu Ubaidah, would send people out into the cities to create staged scenes and feed the algorithm whatever hashtag was trending, like genocide, starvation, all of these falsehoods, and feed that with movie productions.
Let's take a 10,000-foot view. Hamas is just an arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hezbollah is just an arm of the Iranians and to a degree, Muslim Brotherhood. They get interchanged. Muslim Brotherhood has incredible influence in Turkey and obvious influence in Qatar. How much is the strategy not just Israel, but let's infiltrate the whole West? Let's buy influence in America. Let's buy influence in American universities, and then use those as part of our propaganda war.
Absolutely. It is the plan. And you saw after October 7th the plan working. As you said, the decades of investments in our universities for Middle Eastern studies programs, tenured chairs, people with the most radical views, then convincing our youth that Israel is bad, West is bad, war is bad, and all of these other people are good. It's a complete inversion that has been an investment. But you're right, even the strategies of the Islamic regime in Iran to build this ring of fire around Israel, and they say it, not me, that we're going to start with Israel, then we're coming for the West, America next, and the entire Western world as they try to expand the Islamic caliphate, no matter who they partner with. And this is the Shia versus Sunni divide and all of that if you've spent time in the Middle East. And what we saw before October 7th, which is the incredible good news story that we're not talking about, is how, thanks to the United States and really Israel, we've rewritten the Middle East to have a chance for peace, because now there's a Sunni belt around Iran who doesn't have a nuclear weapon, thanks to the United States and Israel, a path to it really quickly. But this also, the enemy has had to show its head in our own United States and the anti-Semitism that's risen 700-fold because of this, all that we're talking about. But these enemies have shown their face, so now we can target those nonprofits and that money that's going to this organization to corrupt our youth.
Well, yeah, we're in Virginia. The Attorney General for Virginia has repeatedly tried to track that money, and they have steadfastly refused, even court judgments against them, they haven't. And it was sort of a plan, well, we'll just outlast you, and now he lost the election, and what's the new Attorney General going? It seems that that as much as the people are aware of it, they seem to be stymied at every turn to really uncover, well, let's follow the money trail and what's really happening. And to my amazement, I guess I expected Obama, after his famous Cairo speech, to be sympathetic to the Muslim world. The Biden administration is Obama Part 2. But it's amazing to me to find it even in the Trump administration, where he seems to be cozying up to Qatar as if they're some kind of key to peace in the Middle East. Why is there this blindness? It seems the strategy is obvious, and we should be using everything in our power to stop it, because once the public opinion changes, it's going to be very hard to change it back. So why are they allowing it?
So since I taught strategy, I know that at that strategic level, there is no black and white. There's always gray. And I absolutely think that we should continue these conversations of identifying who is giving money to what organization and to stop that. Even Al Jazeera's propaganda machine backed by Qatar, being able to target these things, but also understand that at a geopolitical level, and the reason that we're the only superpower left in the world is because we do have relationships. We have allies, and then we have partnerships, and we have business relationships, to include with these people that are at one point our friend and at the other point trying to erode things within our own society. Being able to distinguish between those two, where a relationship with Qatar and a U.S. military base there for force projection is important, but we can also hold our friends accountable on, you're going to stop doing what we see you're doing here. And that's important, and why we elect good leaders of values to make those decisions, even in the complexities, which for me is the strategic values, and why that op-ed was so important to me, because what it was saying, like, if this was true, what you're saying about Israel's right to defend itself, it's eroding who we say we are as who are our allies. Israel is our ally, but also what we will do if somebody attacks us or our friends. And that's why these relationships are important, and I understand them, whether they're Qatar, Turkey, or whoever. They really rival kind of emotions where it doesn't make any sense. But I understand, like, the Gulf states being allies and trillions of dollars of investments to actually curtail the true enemy of peace, which is the Islamic regime in Iran and the other people that are trying to get the foothold in the Middle East, like China, Russia. That's why we have elected these leaders of values to make those hard decisions. When we want it to be a black and white decision, sometimes it's gray.
Yeah, it's a difficult battlefield, and either you engage in it or you completely withdraw and try to block it, which is obviously not an option. Let's talk about phase 2 and boots on the ground in Gaza. Do you think it's possible to disarm Hamas?
I absolutely think it's possible, and there's lots of military history showing that it's possible to not only disarm them, but to de-radicalize the population, which is the other vital part. First, you have to take the guns, because whoever has the guns has the power. And Hamas still has lots of guns.
And they've proven it. They're willing to execute people,
Absolutely.
Their own people, in very publicly, and record it and broadcast it around the world.
Absolutely. And they were willing to starve their population, because that was who was actually keeping food from people. It wasn't Israel or anybody else, as you probably had Reverend Johnny Moore on.
Yeah.
It was Hamas who's willing to do these things, but it's absolutely possible to disarm them. It's absolutely possible to de-radicalize the population and create pockets of stability. But we have this problem also of thinking that things will happen very quickly. And this is the complexity of even the status right now in phase 2. You have this line, this yellow line, where even the demining and dealing with the hundreds of miles of tunnels on the Israel side of the yellow line, where there is no Hamas to disarm, will still be a monumental task, where you do have 50 nations, and I know that some people get upset about who's in the tent. There's so much work to be done. For me, I'm less concerned about that. Yes, who's the boots on the ground that will stabilize areas once I truly believe the IDF and Israel will be the only one fighting Hamas, which will still have to be done, and disarming them. But I also know that war is uncertain, so I can't predict how this will go. But I think that the 20-point plan that President Trump and team put together is the most conditions-based chance for peace in Gaza and in the region that we've seen in decades.
Well, Major John Spencer, thanks for being with us. Thanks for bringing hope, that there is absolutely hope for peace in the Middle East, and something that we'll all pray for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are about to make a difference around the world through your partnership with CBN. Your donation will provide relief to people going through unimaginable disasters.
There are tens of millions of children who are desperate for hope. You'll be the reason children across 80 countries can rewrite their future.
CBN refuses to look past the ones who have been forgotten, and your commitment ensures we never will.
Our ultimate goal is to achieve a time in history when the knowledge of the Lord will cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. Right now, CBN reaches nearly 200 countries with the gospel in their own language and dialects, and we offer prayer support to anyone at any hour of the day.
You are about to unleash God's kingdom across the earth.